Hi, I'm Emery. Today, I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. I checked my watch for the fifth time, 45 minutes late. The restaurant staff had started giving me those pitying looks that made my skin crawl. "Would you like to order now, miss?" the waiter asked, his voice gentle with sympathy. "Just 5 more minutes, please," I replied, knowing full well I was only prolonging my humiliation. My friend Cassandra had sworn her coworker Nate was totally reliable and such a catch. Now I sat alone, nursing a glass of water, with menus for two mocking me from across the table. My phone buzzed. A text from Cassandra. "Did he show? Nate's not responding to my texts." Before I could reply, a deep voice spoke from my left. "Excuse me, but I couldn't help noticing you've been waiting quite a while. Mind if I join you?" I looked up to see a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit standing beside my table. He had been dining alone at the corner table, working on a laptop between courses. "I'm Marcus," he said with a warm smile, "and I hate seeing perfectly good dinner reservations go to waste." "I'm Emery," I replied cautiously, "and this is embarrassing." "Only for the person who stood you up," Marcus said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Their loss entirely. Shall we order? I recommend the truffle risotto." "Why are you doing this?" I asked directly. "Honestly, I've been in your shoes. 3 years ago, corporate dinner, potential investors who never showed. The chef took pity and joined me instead. Best conversation I had that month." He shrugged. "Sometimes random kindness is worth the risk." "Well, I appreciate it," I said, finally relaxing a bit. Truffle risotto it is. Over dinner, conversation flowed effortlessly. Marcus wasn't just wealthy, he was genuinely interesting. He owned several tech companies but talked more passionately about his literacy foundation. I told him about my marketing job and my nightmare boss, Vanessa. "She takes credit for my work constantly," I explained. "Last month, she presented my entire campaign to the executives without even mentioning my name." "That's terrible," Marcus frowned. "Why do you stay?" "I've been building my portfolio. Plus, there's her brother Richard in HR who blocks every promotion or transfer I apply for. They're quite the toxic duo." When the check came, Marcus insisted on paying. "Consider it payment for the enjoyable company," he said, handing me his business card. "I've got a proposition for you, professionally speaking. Call me tomorrow if you're interested." The next day, I called. 1 week later, I was sitting in Marcus's corner office with a job offer that doubled my salary. "I can't just leave," I said, though every fiber of my being wanted to accept. "Vanessa will make my life hell during the notice period, and I need references." "I've been thinking about that." Marcus leaned forward. "What if we turn the tables? I happen to know your company is pitching for the Wilson account next month." "It's all Vanessa talks about," I confirmed. "It would be a huge win. What if you created 2 campaigns? One you present to Vanessa, knowing she'll claim it as her own, and a second superior campaign you keep to yourself." My eyes widened as I caught his drift. "And then what?" "Then you accept this position, working directly for me. Your first client? Wilson Industries." Over the next 2 weeks, I worked tirelessly on both campaigns. The first was good. Professional, safe, exactly what Vanessa would expect. The second was revolutionary, exactly what Wilson needed. As predicted, Vanessa loved my decoy campaign. "This is excellent, Emery," she said, barely glancing through it. "I'll make some tweaks before the presentation." "Of course," I replied sweetly. "You always know how to perfect things." That afternoon, I overheard Vanessa talking to her brother Richard in her office. "Did you see the campaign Emery created?" Vanessa laughed. "I'm going to tear it apart tonight and rebuild it completely. By tomorrow, it'll be my masterpiece." "Just make sure to delete her name from any files," Richard advised. "Remember the Johnson pitch where you forgot?" "Amateur mistake," Vanessa scoffed. "I've learned since then. Besides, she'll be stuck in that assistant position forever. I've made sure of that." "The partners still think she's underperforming based on your reviews," Richard confirmed. No one will ever take her seriously. I silently backed away, my blood boiling but my resolve strengthened. 2 days later, I submitted my resignation directly to the managing partner, citing personal reasons and giving standard 2 weeks' notice. Vanessa was furious. "You can't leave now," she hissed in our next team meeting. "We're in the middle of the Wilson pitch." "I'm sure you'll manage without me," I replied calmly. "After all, it's your campaign." My last day arrived, coinciding with the Wilson presentation. I wished Vanessa good luck with exaggerated sincerity as I packed my desk. "Your career is over," she warned. "I'll make sure of it." "We'll see," I smiled. The following Monday, I started at Marcus's company. By Wednesday, I was sitting across from Mr. Wilson himself, presenting my real campaign. "This is exactly the fresh approach we've been looking for," he exclaimed. "Your previous employer's pitch yesterday was utterly forgettable. Standard, safe, boring." "How did Vanessa take it?" I asked Marcus later that day after he'd called to tell me we'd won the account. "According to my sources, she had a complete meltdown," he chuckled. "Accused her team of sabotage, claimed someone stole her real ideas." But that was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, Marcus invited me to a charity gala his foundation was hosting. The guest list included every major player in our industry. "Nervous?" Marcus asked as we entered the ballroom. "A little," I admitted. "Vanessa will be here with her brother. They always attend these events to network." "Perfect," Marcus smiled. "Phase 2 begins tonight." Throughout the evening, Marcus introduced me to one industry leader after another, always with the same glowing recommendation. "Emery is the creative genius behind the Wilson campaign." I spotted Vanessa across the room, her expression darkening each time she saw me deep in conversation with another potential client. When Marcus introduced me to the CEO of Vanessa's company, I nearly lost my nerve. "Miss Foster has quite the eye for talent," the CEO remarked to Marcus. "She's been singing Vanessa Mitchell's praises for years." "Really?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Interesting, since Emery here developed the Wilson campaign that your firm presented last week. At least, the original version." The CEO looked confused. "Vanessa presented that pitch herself. She said she'd been working on it for months." "That's fascinating," I replied innocently. "Especially since I still have all the original files with creation dates and edit history. Would you like to see them?" The CEO's expression hardened. "I would, very much." By midnight, Vanessa was cornered by her increasingly skeptical boss. I watched from across the room as her gestures became more frantic, her voice rising despite the formal setting. Richard appeared at my elbow, his face flushed with anger. "What did you say to Foster?" he demanded. "Only the truth," I replied. "Something you and your sister should try sometime." "You little—" He grabbed my arm roughly. Marcus materialized instantly. "Problem here?" "No problem," I said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Richard was just leaving, after physically grabbing me and attempting to intimidate me, in front of all these witnesses." Security appeared moments later, escorting a protesting Richard from the gala. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Richard had been suspended pending an investigation into workplace harassment. Not just mine, but apparently several other complaints that had been previously buried. The company's share price took a hit as the news spread. Vanessa called me 7 times. I let each call go to voicemail, listening with increasing satisfaction as her messages evolved from threatening to desperate. "You've ruined everything," her final message sobbed. "I'm being investigated for intellectual property theft. They're reviewing all my past work. Please, Emery, tell them it was a misunderstanding." I deleted the message without replying. Over the next month, 3 more former clients of Vanessa's company approached Marcus's firm, specifically requesting to work with me. Each time, Marcus made sure to mention who had actually created the campaigns they'd previously admired. "You've built quite the reputation," Marcus observed over lunch, 6 months after our first meeting. "Both Vanessa and Richard are gone from Foster and Associates now." "I heard," I nodded. "Richard was let go after multiple harassment allegations came to light. Vanessa was asked to resign after they audited her work, and found a pattern of stealing from junior staff. And now she can't find work anywhere in the industry, Marcus added. Apparently, her resume claims credit for campaigns she can't actually explain in interviews. How unfortunate, I replied without a hint of sympathy. I have something to confess, Marcus said, looking slightly uncomfortable. That night at the restaurant, it wasn't entirely random. I set down my fork. What do you mean? Cassandra is my cousin. She mentioned her friend was being undermined at work by a woman whose company was pitching for the Wilson account. When she set you up with Nate, I asked her which restaurant. Nate was instructed to stand you up. My jaw dropped. You planned the whole thing? Not everything, Marcus said quickly. I genuinely enjoyed our conversation, and I really did need someone with your talents for the Wilson pitch. I just accelerated the meeting. I should have been angry, but instead I found myself laughing. So this whole revenge plot was partly your idea from the beginning? Let's call it a collaboration, Marcus smiled. I provided the opportunity. You provided the brilliance. And speaking of collaboration, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Foster & Associates was just acquired by a larger agency. They're looking for a new creative director. The job's yours if you want it. I opened the box to find a business card with my name and the title, Executive Creative Director. You bought the company? I gasped. Minority stake, Marcus shrugged. Enough to influence hiring decisions. Your former colleagues have been asking about you. Seems they've realized who the real talent was. That's incredible, I breathed. There's one condition, Marcus said, suddenly serious. Nate has been asking Cassandra for another chance to meet you. Apparently, he really did have a family emergency that night. And what do you think I should do about that? I asked carefully. Marcus leaned back. I think that's entirely your decision. Second chances can sometimes be worthwhile, but they're never owed. I thought about Vanessa's desperate voicemails, about Richard's threatening grip on my arm, about years of stolen work and suppressed opportunities. I think I'll pass on Nate, I decided, but I'll definitely take the job. A week after accepting the executive creative director position, I received an email that made me freeze. The sender, Vanessa Mitchell. Did you see this? I asked, turning my laptop so Marcus could view it during our morning coffee. Dear Emery, Marcus read aloud. I hope this email finds you well. Congratulations on your new position. I wanted to reach out and apologize for my past behavior. Keep reading, I urged. I've done a lot of soul-searching since leaving Foster & Associates. I now understand how wrong my actions were. I was insecure and threatened by your talent. Would you consider meeting for coffee? Perhaps we could start fresh. Sincerely, Vanessa. She's unbelievable, I said, shaking my head. After everything she did. What are you going to do? Marcus asked, sliding the laptop back to me. I closed it with a decisive click. Nothing. She doesn't deserve a response. On my first day at Foster & Associates, I walked into my new corner office to find a beautiful arrangement of flowers waiting on my desk. The attached card simply read, Welcome back, with signatures from several former colleagues. How does it feel? Asked Lisa, my former teammate who had always been kind but powerless against Vanessa's regime. Now she would be working directly under me. Surreal, I admitted. In a good way. We have a lot of work to do. The team's excited, Lisa confided. Everyone knows you were the real talent behind our best campaigns. Speaking of the team, I said, pulling out a folder. I've been reviewing everyone's portfolios. You've been severely underpaid and overlooked for far too long, Lisa. How would you feel about becoming our new creative team lead? Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely, I confirmed. Your work speaks for itself. Unlike some people, I believe in giving credit where it's due. Later that week, I spotted Richard outside the building as I was leaving for lunch. He was handing out flyers for a local gym where he apparently now worked as a personal trainer. Emery? He called, his formerly confident voice now uncertain. Can I talk to you for a minute? I paused, considering. You have 30 seconds. I messed up. I know that now, he stammered. Vanessa and I both did. She's really struggling. Can't get interviews anywhere decent. I'm barely making rent. If you could just put in a good word. Time's up, I said coldly, checking my watch. And for the record, consequences aren't the same as revenge, Richard. They're just what you earned. 2 years later, I'm sitting in my corner office as Executive Creative Director. The agency has flourished under my leadership, winning 3 major industry awards. Vanessa occasionally sends emails asking if I'd consider hiring her for an entry-level position. I never respond. Richard works at a convenience store now. I know because I stopped in for coffee last month and watched him struggle to meet my eyes as he handed me my change. Cassandra still apologizes about the blind date setup, though I've told her repeatedly it was the best thing that could have happened. If Nate had shown up, I might never have met Marcus, I reminded her at our engagement party. Sometimes what seems like rejection is actually redirection. Marcus? He's now my fiancé. Turns out revenge isn't just a dish best served cold. Sometimes it's the unexpected first course in a much longer, more satisfying meal. Last week, I received a handwritten letter from Vanessa. Unlike her emails, this one felt desperate, blotched with what might have been tears, explaining how she'd lost everything. Her reputation, her savings, even her apartment. She begged for any position, even as an assistant. She wrote that she'd learned her lesson and just needs one chance. I read it twice before dropping it into the shredder beside my desk. Someone important? Marcus asked, leaning against my office doorway. No, I replied honestly. No one important at all. So what would you do if you were in my position? Would you ever give Vanessa a second chance? Or do you think some bridges should stay burned?